modern period, and we're jumping ahead very quickly here because this is a condensed overview. By the 18th century, you have the period of the transatlantic slave trade, which, as Mordechai mentioned earlier, one of the great tragedies in terms of human civilization and human capital of the atrocious transatlantic slave trade is that the cultural inheritance of so many Africans was completely lost. It was actually, I shouldn't say lost, it was destroyed in the American context as slaveholders mixed and matched African slaves from all types of regions and languages, and their cultures were hopelessly wiped out by this amalgamation of so many different peoples together. Ultimately, they were left with a vacuum with only a tiny scraps and shreds of a Yoruba heritage or something like that. And this left kind of a vacuum for a new spirituality, which of course was Christian gospel, but the Africans in a very fascinating way found an echo that was especially useful to their condition, which ironically, as we shall see in a moment, really connected them to Jews in many ways more than it may have to Christians. In many ways more than it may have to Christians. Really connected them to Jews in many ways more than it may.
They teach you the history of slavery? Why? Ask the bloody question. Why are they only teaching you the history of slavery as far back as the 16th and the 17th century? Why are they only going that far back? They don't want you to go farther back than that, because then you'll actually find out the truth. But from the 16th and 17th century, we'll teach you about slavery. You've got to go further back, and you've got to understand and question, why do they do this throughout the whole of America, in all the public schools? Why do they only go back as far as the 16th and the 17th century to talk about slavery? We've got to go further back than that.
Congratulations, you found the truth. The Jews of Spain and Portugal were black. And if they're black, that means they look like you. However, your excitement quickly turns to sadness and anger when you realize you've been lied to. All this time, people from the church and the so-called historians told you the idea of Israel being black was a lie, made up. However, you found books from the 1600s, 1700s, and 1800s describing the Jews as black. As the following reference reads, the Spanish Jew is always dark complexion. Tis also a vulgar error that the Jews are all black, for this is only true of the Portuguese Jews. Located at the bottom, lips very full, mouth projecting, chin small, and the whole physiognomy, the way they look, when swarthy or when black, as it often is, has an African look. Thus, the black color is found not only in individuals as the Black Jews of Portugal. The Jews of Portugal are very dark. King John II in 1492 expelled all the Jews to the island of St. Thomas, which had been discovered in 1471, and to other Portuguese settlements on the continent of Africa. And from these banished Jews, the Black Portuguese, as they are called.
I'm so glad you're here because you can bring great clarity. Can you tell us a little bit about the Sephardic Jews and how they were scattered because they went west?
I sure can.
Because the reason why I want to is because a lot of them, and a lot of people don't know this, are in the Caribbean.
They are.
In the islands.
And you're one of them. I know that.
I'm one of them.
I know that.
Because, you know, a lot of folk don't know that those roots are there. One of the first batches of slaves that came to Jamaica they were the Sephardic Jews. It's documented.
And they're all over
And
the
they're all
Caribbean,
over the Caribbean.
South America, Central America, and even the South Central United States.
As you can see, Jews were referred to as black, swarthy, dark complexion, and African looking in the old books. So if anyone tells you that black Jews were dreamed up by some guy in Chicago in the 1960s or some black guy in the late 1800s, now you know that that person either hasn't read old books or he or she is intentionally lying to you. The Negro, scattered around the world by way of the transatlantic slave trade. And in the U.S., they're known as African Americans. However, have you ever taken the time to look up the word Negro in the Webster Dictionary? Well, let's take a closer look. The Webster Dictionary defines the word Negro as, and I quote, a member of a race of humankind native to Africa and classified according to physical features such as dark skin pigmentation. This is what we would expect to find for the definition of the word Negro. However, very few people scroll down to read the section located near the bottom of the page, which reads, First known use of Negro, 1555, in the meaning defined above. In other words, the first written record of the word Negro, meaning an African, started in the year 1555. In other words, the word Negro did not refer to a person of African descent until the year 1555. And with that in mind, the question would be, then who were the people called Negroes before 1555? You see, the transatlantic slave trade started in the year 1501. And the slaves on the first transatlantic slave ships were called Negroes. In fact, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabel of Spain made it mandatory that only Negroes who were born in Spain and Portugal would be allowed to go to the Americas as slaves. In other words, these Negroes were Spanish and Portuguese natives. Wow. And so we need to know who was called Negroes in Spain and Portugal before 1555. Now, in 1492, we see the Spanish Jews who fled into Portugal after being expelled from Spain. We see these Jews were called Negroes. Not only were these Spanish and Portuguese Jews called Negroes, they also took on the last name of Negro. For example, we see Jews in Portugal with the names Yahya Negro, or Judah Negro, and Dawid or David Negro. In addition to being called Negro and having last names of Negro, these Jews were described as black, dark complexion, brown, and swarthy in color. Some references compare the color of these Jews to the Bicaris of Africa, who look like the so-called Negroes today. We also see the skulls of the Spanish Jews identified as dolichocephalic, which is the skull of the so-called Negro today. And finally, we see the word Negro associated with these Spanish and Portuguese Jews over and over again.
Wow. This is another thing that if you look at the more recent maps, you're not going to see this on it at all. But if you go back, like I said a minute ago, you'll find the truth. And so the Negro land map from the 1700s shows Negro land. It shows New Guinea right here, and it shows you the different coasts. And so this right here is I believe this is the Grain Coast. I'm not sure. It says the Tooth Coast, the Gold Coast, and right here it says it's the Slave Coast. So this is where the slaves were taken. Right here on the edge of Africa. And so when you scroll in, you see this KM, and that symbolizes kingdom. So it says the kingdom of Judah. The kingdom of Judah was right here where the slave coast is. So this is where they took the slaves. The kingdom of Judah is right here. When we read this right here, this is from Black Jews, The Religious Challenge or Politics versus Religion. This is written by Ulysses Santa Maria and is published by Cambridge University. The study of customs and rights and the analysis of the semantics of these African tribes have led many of their observers to propose some hypotheses and even to draw some conclusions. Dr. Alan H. Godbey reached the following conclusion. These factors have a specific significance if we consider the presence of Judaism among American Negroes. It says hundreds of thousands of slaves were transported to America from West Africa during the slave trade, which started some 400 years ago. What traces of Judaism still remain among the Negroes of West Africa in that period? To the extent that they were persecuted, they were more likely than other Negroes to be seized during wars and sold as slaves. It says that they practiced Judaism, and it said what traces of Judaism still remain among the Negroes in West Africa during that period. It was like to the extent that they were persecuted for it. Wow. Because of it. And they were more likely than other Negroes to be seized during the wars and sold as slaves.
Creole New Orleans, race and Americanization, we just proven real quick that the so-called Negroes are from the tribe of Judah, okay? Page 67, between June 1719 and January 1731, 16 slave trading ships arrived in Louisiana from the Senegal region. 6 ships came from Judah, a slave trading post. Between February 1626 and January 1731, 12 slave ships from Senegal landed 3,259 slaves at Belize at the mouth of Mississippi River. During that same period, 1 ship from Judah landed 464 slaves at that same port. The African slaves brought to the Chesapeake during the 18th century came mainly from the Bight of Biafra and were heavily Igbo.
So Sir Harry Johnston, in 1910, wrote The Negro in the New World. This is directly from the Smithsonian Institute. They are in possession of this book. So the Elamites of Mesopotamia appear to have been a Negroid people. The Elamites are, they do descend from Shem. Appear to have been a Negroid people with kinky hair and to have transmitted this racial type to the Jews and Syrians. There is a curliness of the hair together with a Negro eye and full lips in the portraiture of Assyria, which conveys the idea of an evident Negro element in Babylonia, quite probably the very ancient Negro invasion of the Mediterranean Europe. Well, just to drop some more evidence on people, forget the definition of the word ruddy. I want to draw your attention right here to the end. The dark-skinned Hebrews found great beauty in a clear complexion. The dark-skinned Hebrews. Now, where's this from? This right here is the bibliography information, the International Standard Bible Encyclopedia of 1915. So we have Sir Harry Johnston in 1910 saying that the Jews have Negroid features. We have the International Standard Bible Encyclopedia of 1915 saying that the dark-skinned Hebrews, but ruddy in the Zondervan Bible, a word used to refer to a red or fair complexion, in contrast to the dark skin of the Hebrews. Zondervan already said the Negroes are not from the line of Ham. And here again in the Zondervan dictionary says, in contrast to the dark skin of the Hebrews. Started looking into the Elamites, And lo and behold, we find this picture, and this picture's on the walls at Susa in Shushan Palace. Now, if you go to any Bible program app you have on your phone and type in Shushan, Shushan, you will find the references to the Elamites at Shushan Palace. And so when I found this, I was like, okay, this is interesting. These are definitely black people. Furthermore, the Bible refers to the Elamites being archers. And as you can see in the picture here, they all have bows and quivers for arrows. Now, this solidified for me early in my journey that, okay, if there's any truth to Israelites being black, this evidence is very, very convincing, because now I don't have to adhere to the modern European teaching that Shem was brown or Middle Eastern or olive looking. Because as I said in the part 1, it doesn't make sense that Ham would be the only black brother. If his father wasn't black, it would make sense for his brothers to be black as well. So we know that Ham was black. We know the Cushites were black. And here we find the first son, the descendants of the first son of Shem are depicted as black. And we can see their hair here. We can see their beards, their hair. It looks like Afro hair. It looks like these are supposed to be kinks or naps or whatever you want to call them. That is black people hair. So that was one of the biggest convincers that the line of Shem was definitely dark, just like the line of Ham. Now, Asher is a Shemite, which is interesting. So I'll go ahead and read this from Genesis 10:8-11, and you'll recognize this from part 1 because this is the part dealing with Nimrod the Cushite. And Cush begat Nimrod, and he began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. Out of that land went forth Asher, and builded Nineveh, and the city of Rehoboth, and Calah. Went forth Asher. So Asher came out of a Cushite empire, even though he is a descendant of Shem. He came out of the Cushite empire and he built Nineveh. So here is a picture of the Assyrians. And as we can see, look at their hair, look at the lips, look at the noses, look at the hair again over here, the beards, the hair, the noses, the lips. These are the Assyrians. This is important because we just saw the Elamites. The Elamites were black. And now we look at the Assyrians and we see that they have black features. So now we have a second son of Shem confirmed to be a dark-skinned people, more than likely. When you start to dig a little deeper past the surface stuff, people can argue because this doesn't have any color on it, like, oh, they could have been this or that. But we see the facial features. We see the hair. We see the lips. We see the beards. We see the noses. But when you dig into the Hebrew, the Strong's Concordance was not written by black people. And so when we go to Strong's, we see, what do we see here? Proper name, masculine. Ashkur, or Asher, as it is translated. Definition, black and Israelite. Black and Israelite. Proper name, masculine in Judah. Now, we'll come back to that. But again, one more time, black and Israelite. So we have Asher, whose name means black. We see the Assyrians who have black features. We saw Elam, or the Elamites, who are black people. And these people come from the line of Shem. And Shem is the brother of who? Ham. Now, Eurocentric Christian doctrine will tell you that all black people came from Ham, but this is not true.
And when we talk about the Hebrews, and that the Hebrews are people of color, the biblical Hebrews, the Jews of the Bible, are people of color. It's important for us to understand. You see, it's hard because we don't have pictures like we got pictures now, you know? But we do have what we call reliefs and hieroglyphics. And the Assyrians drew what the Hebrews that they conquered looked like. And I'm going to show you some pictures of that. Amen. That's what the Hebrews looked like. You see that hair? What that look like? Where John Mark at? I don't know. Where John? John Mark! Turn around, John Mark, for us. Yeah, Pastor, I'm working. Pastor, I'm working. I saw another brother over here. Hallelujah. You see what that look like? Look at that. Look at the noses on them boys. All right, give me another one. Hebrew nuggets. You see? Look at them mini braids. That's either mini braids or BB shot. But one or the other, that's a Hebrew. Let me show you another one here now. All right. Hallelujah. That one is kind of harder to see, but it's a full shot of them coming out of Assyria when they was trying to get us to sing songs of Zion, when they would take us captive, because the Hebrews could always sing. Let's keep on going. Amen. Look at them braids. Look at them beauty beads in them beards. Come on, keep going. Hallelujah. Glory to God. Is there anything else? That's about it? That's about it? Hallelujah. All right. So, saints, that was a Hebrew nugget, a Hebrew minute. Come on, give God some glory. Amen.
While you're grabbing that, I'm just going to insert something interesting.
Go ahead.
But logically, it's more natural to think that they were black Jews than white Jews. Black Jews than white Jews. One, because of the Israelites being a Semitic people, so they were not Caucasian. Because of the Israelites being a Semitic people, so they were not Caucasian. The Israelites being a Semitic people, so they were not Caucasian. They would be Negroid, but they would be Caucasian. The other thing is the proximity of Israel to Egypt, which is part of Africa, and Israel spending time in Egypt. So as people are scattered, it's going to make much more sense, right? Just if you're guessing, right, as Jewish people begin to be scattered around the world, what's going to be more likely, that you have dominant black Jews or dominant white Jews? You think you have more likely to be a lot of black Jews, whereas for many of us growing up, the idea of a black Jew is, well, I guess you converted at a certain point. And then we began to hear about the Ethiopian Jews. Oh, okay. And then like with Jonathan Bernis and Jewish Voice and working with the Lemba Jews, and then DNA testing connecting them with the priestly gene, and then DNA testing connecting them with the priestly gene, or the Levites, etc.
Mining in Ethiopia, the cover, wooden board cover, as you see, everything is made at home. So this is 15th century manuscripts. Sometimes, it's amazing that, people in the 15th century, were they, aware of color? All the saints, even the Virgin, is painted black, Even today, you don't find such paintings in churches, always, a bright color, not black color. So it has to be studied very, very well, this type of documents. Look, even the evangelist, this is Matthew, and the harag or the decorations, all this,
For a whole year, Barnabas and Saul met with the church and taught great numbers of people. The disciples were called Christians first at Antioch. That right there is very, very interesting. The disciples were called Christians first at Antioch. So thought about this word that I found in Strong's Concordance, because at Antioch there was a guy called Simeon, right? And his surname was, what I thought at the time, I thought it was Niger. I've always been told that that's how you pronounce that, Niger, this word right here, that we find in Strong's Greek lexicon. It says Niger, but it says it's not pronounced Niger. Its pronunciation is Niger.
Strong's G 3526. Niger. Niger.
I've always been told that that's how you pronounce that, Niger, this word right here, that we find in Strong's Greek lexicon. It says Niger, but it says it's not pronounced Niger. Its pronunciation is Niger. Niger. It says it's of Latin origin. It means black. Niger, a Christian. A Christian. I was like, wow. So Niger is of Latin origin and it means black, and it's a Christian. And so I got this book from the thrift store a while ago. I posted on social media about it. It's from Zondervan, and it's called the Bible Pictorial Dictionary. And when I was reading that, I was reading through the book, and it has different words that's used in the Bible, and they have a description of it, and it tells you the history of that word. And so I looked up the word Niger there, and it says Niger is a surname of Simeon. So a surname is like the name of a group of people. And it says that he is one of the 5 prophets and teachers of the church at Antioch, who were led of the Lord to send Paul and Barnabas to their first missionary journey. And then it says that it's probably a Hebrew Christian from North Africa. And I was like, what? So the disciples were called Christians first at Antioch, and a Christian is a Niger, and a Niger is probably a Hebrew Christian from North Africa. That makes me think, and I don't know, I just saw this literally the other day and was blown away by it. But I'm like, man, did they call them Christians at Antioch? Or did they call them niggers at Antioch?
Another interesting place that you find descendants of the Israelites, but shouldn't be overlooked. It's a very serious scenario. Is in Africa. Africa has perhaps hundreds of millions of people with this identity right now, of being from the people of Israel. That when the Romans conquered Judea, a few hundred years after the tribes of Israel went into exile, perhaps millions of Judeans were sold into slavery. Into Africa, into Rome, deep into Africa. If you look now, you're seeing people who are most likely the descendants of those slaves who kept true. I like to bring up a few specific examples, because they're going to be game changers. And a professor from Duke University went out there and did DNA testing on them. And he showed not only do they share Semitic genes from people who were in Yemen, back to the Middle East, these gentlemen, a large percent of them, have the Y chromosome to be Kohanim, to be priests. For anyone who doesn't know, a priest is a specific family clan of the nation of Israel who come from Aaron, the brother of Moses, who was the first priest. And anyone descended from Aaron has the status title priest. And we found that these men in this village in South Africa called Lemba, L-E-M-B-A, carry this genetic marker. Another area in Africa, you have the Igbo people, or Igbo, pronounced either way. There's 40 million of them. What's interesting is, in America, there was a slave trade. And a lot of the slaves, a very high percentage of them, came from Western Nigerian ports. And in America today, you see a very large movement of African Americans who say that they're the real chosen people, that they're the children of Israel, they're the Judeans. You know, so what are they just trying to create an identity for themselves because they were slaves, or is there really something here? And the answer is, most likely there is something there. And most likely, maybe that they were the original Israelites, and maybe that the Jewish people today who are white, Caucasian people came in a little bit later on. We know that some of the greatest sages of the transmission of the Torah were converts from Rome. You have a man named Onkelos who wrote a commentary on the Torah, unprecedented, that we still learn today. He was a convert. Some of the largest pillars on the transmission today were Roman converts. So here we are, we're Caucasian Jewish people, and now you have people in Africa saying that they're the real people of Israel. It can't be ruled out at all. We know they were sold into slavery. We know now that they're fulfilling prophecies by saying, we're coming back.
It's said that once you've been to Africa, the continent is locked in your heart forever. The deep cultural heritage is unmistakable and unchanging. The same can be said for the Middle East, where the people of Israel have passed down their traditions for centuries. The Lemba are something completely different. This tribe, who live in Zimbabwe and South Africa, claim they are direct descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel. Is it possible they are who they say they are? Astonishingly, the facts support their miraculous oral tradition. Lemba oral tradition, passed on through generations, says they came from the rabbinical tribe, the Levites. The Lemba say they fled their original home and traveled to Senna in modern-day Yemen, where they became traders and craftsmen until they were forced to escape war or natural disaster. This drove the Lemba across the Red Sea to Africa. During their journey down the African continent, tradition says the Lemba built great cities of stone. This is where science comes in. Archaeologists have verified the existence of these cities. In addition, at these stone city sites, many artifacts have been discovered. These facts are a direct tie to the oral tradition handed down by generations of Lemba. Tribes all over Africa have kept their traditions and customs, but the Lemba are like no other tribe. Strict adherence to Jewish customs have been watched over by Lemba rabbis. Despite losing their original Torah on the journey from Israel to Zimbabwe, all oral teachings and traditions have been maintained. The same kind of oral teaching described in the Old Testament. Dietary laws, including kosher standards and restrictions on meat, are obeyed. Circumcision. Intermarriage has been strictly forbidden to preserve the culture and bloodline. Traditional rabbinical clothing is worn. In a place thousands of miles away from Israel, detached from all Jewish culture, these African Jews who call themselves original Hebrews are committed to their way of life that has been passed down generation to generation. Eventually, DNA testing advanced to the point where the Lemba's claims could be put to the scientific test. University of London scholar Dr. Tudor Parfit swabbed a cross-section of Lemba tribe members, and the results were astounding. The Y chromosome, passed on by many males in the population, proved to contain the Cohen modal haplotype. Among Jews, the CMH marker is most prevalent among Kohanim, or hereditary priests. In addition, This marker is one that only emanates from the Middle East. It is not found in any identifiable African roots. Even more astounding are the following stats. The CMH marker shows up in 50% of the Lemba tested. The same marker shows up only 3 to 5% of the time in the general Jewish population. What could be tradition lost in generations of translation has proven to be quite the opposite. Stories passed on generation after generation, backed up by scientific proof.
We are not lost. We are scattered. We are original Hebrew.
This chair is about to break. My father's sitting here and my mother is sitting here and they're fighting for the mic from moment to moment. My grandmother talks to you every now and then. All of my ancestors are sitting on this table all the way back to Nigeria. All of them. My ancestors were Igbos from Nigeria. And Igbos are called black Jews, that they're industrious. My ancestors were Igbos,
This is 1969, a memorandum to the president. Many of you have seen this before. Right here, this is from Henry Kissinger. This is on the U.S. Department of State Archive. Right here, we're back to the Igbos of West Africa. The Igbos are the wandering Jews of West Africa, gifted, aggressive, westernized, at best envied and resented, but mostly despised by the mass of their neighbors in the Federation. They have fought well by African standards against heavy odds. Their cynical public relations use of starvation has been brilliant. One more time, the Igbos are the wandering Jews of West Africa. So, again, we keep seeing these references, and people can say whatever they want to. People, well, he only called them wandering Jews of West Africa because of, and they'll give you some excuse. Y'all heard T.D. Jakes. He's descended from Igbos, and T.D. Jakes has said Igbos are the black Jews. They call Igbos black Jews. Most of us are aware of this. realnewsmagazine.net. Most of us are aware of this. Jewish Rabbinical Court. This is 3 months ago. Jewish Rabbinical Court rules Igbos are Israelites. Wow. One more time. Jewish Rabbinical Court rules Igbos are Israelites. Shout out to Remy Iona. I can't pronounce this. I don't want to butcher it. Nze and Mecca. I just said that and then I went and butchered it. You guys see this name right here. On the 14th day of January 2022, the Jewish Rabbinate of the Obadiah Alliance, all these names right here, ruled that the Igbos of Nigeria are descendants of ancient Israelites. According to the rabbinate, the presence of Israelites along the Niger River had been known by Jewish authorities in the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Lithuania, and Suriname. Rabbinic letters addressed to the Igbos by chief rabbis, Dr. Solomon Herschel, I'm not going to read these names, support the idea that there was contact between European Jewish communities and Igbo Israelites. All of the correspondence from the aforementioned rabbinic authorities addressed the Igbos as brethren of the children of Israel. Accordingly, there is no doubt of their origins, nor of their halakhic status as Israelites. So wait a minute. According to the rabbinate, while there is yet an exhaustive academic genetic study of the Igbos, there is yet an exhaustive academic genetic study of the Igbos. The data of the majority of those who have reported their autosomal and Y chromosome DNA supports that their ancestors migrated from the Levant Basin, sharing genetic links with Sephardic, those Portuguese Jews, and Ashkenazi Jews alike. So now, there were reported DNA studies done before, but turns out those studies weren't actually true. Let's just keep going. The rabbinate noted that the fact that rabbinic authorities during the Songhai empires, that's in Mali, were aware of the Israelites in Igbo land, which leads to the logical conclusion that they treated Igbos as Israelites. The final conclusion of the Obadiah Alliance rabbinate was that Igbos are to be treated as Israelites in every sense of the word, and also their priestly and Levite lineages should be upheld as valid. Give me a second. I'm gonna cue something up. All right, here we go. This is from the Obadiah Alliance. The Obadiah Alliance was who was named here. The Obadiah Alliance. That's who named here. This is one of the men. He is a Sephardic Jew. He is one of the men on the council. It says Pasak Din on the Israelite identity of the Igbo people. The Igbo are Israelites. There is much literature and legal precedent to validate their Israelite identity. For the ruling in Hebrew, please visit, and this is academia.edu. Up over here. If you guys want to go to academia.edu, the link will be in the description, but this is the same man, and it's written in Hebrew. This is the findings. Here's their contact information, Miami, Florida. Here is their address, their email, and this is totally written in Hebrew. You will have to translate this to read through it all. You can download the PDF, which I have done right here. It is in Hebrew as well. You will have to translate it to read it. I'm not going to read all that. Here's a 4-minute announcement, what he was talking about, and I'm going to let you guys listen to this since he speaks in English. And this was February 11th, 2022.
Shalom Aleichem lechol chachamim shenimtzau betor chol ha'olam. Blessed and with peace be all those who are found throughout the entire world. It's been about a month now that the Obadiah Alliance has issued a ruling on the Israelite identity of the Igbo people, who are found throughout Igbo land and outside of Igbo land. They are numbering about 40 million in population, scattered throughout the world and Nigeria. There has been much talk about whether the ruling that was made, what does it mean? Is it accepted? Is it valid? And I would like to say, in the name of Obadiah Alliance as the sitting chairman, that this ruling has all of the halachic weight as any ruling from any Bet Din around the world, whether it is the RCA, whether it is Bet Din in Canada, or Bet Din in South America, or even a Bet Din issued by the chief rabbinate of the state of Israel. We know that according to halakha, any takana or gezerah which is established by one Bet Din in one place cannot be enforced upon another community, and vice versa. We also learn in halakha that any ruling which is made by one Bet Din cannot be annulled or cancelled by another Bet Din. Only a Bet Din can examine the witnesses, but not undo or cancel or repeal the rulings of another Bet Din. If such were to be the case, then the entire legal system upon which the nation of Israel, the people of Israel, the Jewish people, exists, the whole system will fall apart.
We are not lost. We are scattered. We are original Hebrew.